Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is a quick revision of Ajurumiya fi Nahu in grammar, written by Ibn al-Ajurum or Ibn al-Akirrum or Ibn al-Ajurum, which means al-Faqir Sufi in Berber, meaning yani, the poor, the needy Sufi. So he wrote this to make grammar easy for beginners. Today we see that a lot of people, when they study the Ajurumiya, they have the feeling that they have moved earth, skies and mountains. But in reality it is a beginning, and even as a beginner's book it is not all encompassing. There are some things that are missing, not because Ibn al-Ajurum rahimahullah azza wa jal didn't know them, but because he didn't think it was necessary back then. Because people had a basic knowledge, an overall basic knowledge. But now we need more explanation, we are in need of more detail. So as you hear, my voice is almost gone. But at least I speak until I have no voice anymore, so then I know when I'm silent, then inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward me as if I were speaking and talking. So anyway, so Ibn al-Ajurum, he wrote this, and he made it very easy. And in this course, we are going to share with you some general thoughts. It is not like we are going to explain the book, we are going to revise the book, meaning that you need some basic knowledge about Nahu so that you are able to follow what I am about to say, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this beneficial, and I ask Him, inshallah, to grant us the energy to go over the book entirely. Of course, it won't be with PowerPoint presentations. I'm just sitting here, inshallah, in my free time, trying to share this with you. So it's not a prepared class. It's a freestyle teacher-student thing. You know what I mean? So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this. So now, Ibn al-Ajurum rahimahullah, he explains in this book of Nahu. And Nahu, in reality, is a knowledge that teaches us how we need to understand the position of a word in a sentence, which is very important. And then, on the other hand, it also teaches us which vowel to place at the end of a word, or which vowel replaces another vowel, or which letter replaces another letter, and so forth and so forth. So it has everything to do with the end of a word. It hasn't got to do with the beginning of a word. And Nahu, they say, came into existence as a science because it existed already from a practical point of view. So I would call grammar a descriptive knowledge, meaning it describes how the language existed and how it was spoken. So it hasn't come with anything innovative from that point of view. So like they didn't sit together and say, okay, what are we going to make the fa'il? The fa'il, let us give it a dhamma. And sometimes, a waw as a replacer of the dhamma, or sometimes an alif, sometimes, and so forth. So this is not what they used to do. They actually looked at the fa'il, at the subject, at the one performing the verb, and they said, okay, the Arabs, when they would talk about the fa'il, then either when it was mufrad, a singular noun, then they would give it a dhamma, for example. And if it was passive, it would also have a dhamma if it would be singular. But if there were twofold, then they would give it an alif, rajulani mathalan, for example. So it is descriptive knowledge. It describes, and they only came to this conclusion and they gathered everything after what we call at-tatabbu' wal-istiqra'. Yani they did their utter best and they strove to find out how language was construed and how language was built up and what it looked like in the time of the Arabs. What we should know is that after the year 150 after the Hijrah, that no new word or no new anything with regards to language was accepted. They said, then the doors were closed, apart from Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah azza wa jal, whom they trusted, and if he came with a word or a sentence construction that they didn't know of, which would be unlikely in the latter, meaning the sentence construction, then they would accept it. They would accept it from Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah azza wa jal. So now, at the very beginning, there wasn't this, the danger of losing the Arabic language, because the Arabs, they learned it from their parents, and their parents from their parents, and their parents from their parents. So they were used to talk in Arabic without giving it a second thought. It was natural. They didn't have to think about, is it جاء رجلين or is it جاء رجلان. That wasn't an issue for them. رأيت, for example, رأيت الحصان or رأيت الحصان. They didn't think about it. It was clear. It was obvious. But after, when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam spread the message of Islam, and the Muslim country grew and expanded, then the Arabs now were encountering, or they were meeting new people who didn't have the habit to speak the Arabic language. They spoke in other languages. And as the Arabic language is a voweled language, like for example, I would say, John came, I saw John. Now, I passed by John. John doesn't change. I don't say, Johnu came, I saw Jonna. I passed by Johnny, It doesn't change at the end. So it is very easy in a certain way, which doesn't mean that other languages aren't difficult. But from this perspective, we can actually say that the Arabic language isn't as easy. So now, the newcomers and those who embraced Islam were speaking this new language and were committing a lot of errors. This wasn't as bad at the very beginning, because the first generation of Arabs after the Prophet ﷺ, of Muslims, they still had the habit, because they weren't brought up in the midst of other cultures and languages. But now when the newcomers came into Islam, and you had these kids, these children that used to, mix with people that weren't as good in English as the others, at speaking English as the Arabic as the others, they heard these mistakes and they absorbed these mistakes, and they no longer knew how they had to pronounce the Arabic language in a correct manner and way. So now one day, Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, and we are also allowed to say Du'li, who worked for Ali radiallahu anhu, the son-in-law of our noble messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one day he went, he arrived at home, and his daughter was looking at the skies, and she said, "Ma ahsanu sama," which means in Arabic, what is the most beautiful thing in the sky? She said, yes. So, ma ahsanu sama, what is the most beautiful thing in the sky? And her father said, al-qamar, or shams, the moon or the stars or the sun. And she said, laysa an hadha as'aluk, it's not about that what I'm asking you. I'm not asking a question. So then she said again, ma ahsanu sama, which means what is the most beautiful thing in the sky. So the Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali, or Du'li, he said, but Binti, you are asking, my daughter, you are asking me a question. She said, Naam walakinni ata'ajjab. I am stupefied, I am marveled. So her father said, okay, iftahi, famaki, open your mouth, meaning with a fatha, ma ahsana as-sama, and not ma ahsanu sama. So when I say ma ahsana as-sama, oh, how beautiful indeed the sky really is. But if I say ma ahsanu, I'm asking a question. So Abu al-Aswad al-Du'li rahimahullah azza wa jal wa ardahu went back to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali radiallahu anhu, And he told him about what had happened. So Ali radiallahu anhu, he took a piece of paper and he wrote al-fa'ilu maf'ul, al-fa'ilu marfu' and so forth. And then he said, go hadha nahu. Yani, do it in this way, this manner, in this direction go. Yani mean develop this. So now Abu al-Aswad later on yani, developed this knowledge, or at least he laid the fundamentals of this knowledge. And this is where it all started. This is where the Imams later on, like Imam Sibawayh and Khalil ibn Ahmad and others, actually did their utter best to preserve this language. Because by preserving this language, we actually preserve our deen. And this Muslim community was at its strongest when they spoke the same language. Wherever you went as a Muslim to another Muslim country, you were able to talk to them in this Arabiya fasiha. And we don't say fusha. The best thing is to say fasiha, because the only Arabiya is fasiha, eloquent. And when I say al-Arabiyatul Fusha, it means yani, the most eloquent, meaning that there is an other Arabic which is not eloquent. No. Arabic is always eloquent, and the rest is darija, yani. So the rest is mixed, a mixed kind of Arabic. So the scholars, so at the very, I'm sorry, the people used to talk in Arabic, and when you would go to any place in the Arabic world or in the Muslim world, you were able to communicate. There was one flag, one people, one language. But after that, everybody started to talk his own language, his own darija. Like I remember when I took a taxi, when I was in Jordan, and I spoke in Arabiya Fasiha, and when I got out, the cab driver told me Sadaqallahu al-Azim, because he wasn't used to this kind of language. He wasn't used to the usage of al-Arabiya al-Fasiha, and I told him this was not Quran. This was merely, Arabiya Fasiha. Until the beginning of the 1900s, where people like Al-Hafidh Ibrahim and others, and Al-Zaghlul and others stood up for the Arabic language, because they saw like the danger of losing a grasp on the Arabic language, especially because it's a vast language, a rich language, rich in words, rich in meanings. So now they were frightened that people were so influenced by, subhanAllah, by the colonization, and that they started forgetting the Arabic language because they had to talk in English at universities, or in French, or in Italian, and so forth. So Al-Hafidh Ibrahim and others, they stood up at the beginning of the 19th century, and they said that going back to the Arabic language was one of the most, if not the most important thing to do. Because as one of my scholars said, if you are not at the level of the 10 mu'allaqat or the 7 mu'allaqat, yani the great poems of the pre-Islamic poets, the great poems of the pre-Islamic poets, if you are not at a level to where you can grasp what they are saying, you won't be at the level to grasp what Allah is exactly saying in the Quran, because it was revealed in their language at that level. So Al-Hafidh Ibrahim and others stood up, and then Al-Hafidh Ibrahim wrote a very, very beautiful poem, which I think should be memorized by many student of knowledge. And so he spoke in the name of the Arabic language, and he said, like the Arabic language said, رجعت لنفسي فاتهمت حصاتي وناديت قومي فاحتسبت حياتي. So he speaks in the Arabic language, and maybe one day we can go over this poem, and I really think it is necessary. So the Arabic language in reality is crying, because it is like an orphan who hasn't, like an orphan but not an orphan, because there is still time to learn Arabic. So now the Arabs, they wrote these books, and there were so many differences at the very beginning between the people of Kufa and the people of Basra. There were even wars going on, intellectual wars and hatred, due to these differences in grammatical approach of sentences and so forth. So, but at the end, everything, calmed down, And then you had people like Imam al-Anbari and others who wrote his book in Insaf, in Nahu, and so forth.